Year 2020 has been like a T20 match for Indian startups. It's seen the best and the worst of happen to the Indian startup ecosystem, from layoffs to the highest number of unicorns in a year. It had it all, and with the onset and the spread of the pandemic, it had left a lot of businesses, organizations, government world over, in a situation where they were repeatedly tested and stretched as well. And this was definitely a time when even startups would get tested, and whether a lot of them would survive or not, because the governments did provide a lot of support to startups, but then still, um, at one point there was an estimate that 70% of Indian startups uh, might not just be able to survive the pandemic itself, but that's not been the case. There have been situations, and there have been some startups that have laid off employees as well. But as against that, there have been some good news as well, on the funding side, on the innovation side, in terms of scale ups. It's been great. This year alone, if I talk about the positives, I have seen 7 unicorns that have got created during the pandemic in 2020 itself. And that's a positive, right? In a year where not too many great good things were happening, here's a situation where we would have more number of startups coming up in the years to come. So yes, 2020 has been a seesaw ride, but I think we would have a better year coming, like everyone else thinks. Was expected. The funding was a bit slow. Public markets are crashing, and venture capital funds have become extremely cautious towards their spending. And deep-pocketed global investors too have decided to put off some of the large deals for the time being. But while the overall scenario looks grim right now, we could look at some of the numbers in terms of India itself. Startup funding, from March 2020 dropped over 50% as compared to the previous months. And the Indian startups, between January and November 2020, raised a total disclosed funding of about $8.4 billion. This again was a 30% decline as compared to the funding raised by startups in 2019. In terms of the number of deals, again, the Indian startups registered a total of 765 deals in this period. Again, as I said, between January and November 2020, which again is a 14.5% decline as compared to the previous year. The numbers reflect a significant slowdown in funding activities. Primarily, this is caused due to the sluggish economy, coupled with a short-term nationwide lockdown. The COVID-19 crisis has brought a challenge in startup investment patterns. Venture capital funds had been shifting their focus from tech-centric startups to the one operating in sectors such as grocery delivery or FMCG, home entertainment. OTT, for example, has been one sector which has seen a good rise. So yeah, there's been some dip in the funding, but yeah, the ones that have done well have really done well as well. Because of the pandemic itself, there were certain sectors that did really well. They were not the ones that we were ignored or were not going to do well, but the rise in the number of startups, the rise in the funding to these was again prompted by a lot of innovation that was going to help us through the pandemic and similar situations in future. So edtech, educational technologies got a lion's share of the funding this year. Um, Health and pharma again got good response, and we've seen a lot of startups in this domain do well. I mentioned about OTT because entertainment had to become digital. It had to be delivered right at the doorstep on the mobile phone or on the television screens, because you look at the number of releases in terms of movies, they have not happened. Even large banners are now looking to release their films on OTT platforms. So these are the sectors that have seen a sharp rise. FMCG, as I mentioned earlier, again um, has done a good number of deals and have been among sectors to register good performance this year. Pandemic has changed lives and has brought work from home and study from home culture in India, which was probably non-existent. I still remember times when we would laugh, or just say that this is a Western thing. It can't happen in India. You can't have a work from home culture or a study from home culture. It has to be in physical. You can't have a person working from home. He can't work from home. But this has happened, hence, several IT-based startups have shown up. Startups such as White Hat Junior or Byju's, along with educational portals such as Vedantu, they've shown bright in these times of gloom. With the fear of currency spreading, the pandemic, online payments and e-wallets also got a real-time boost. Look at the growth of Paytm, for example. It was one of the gainers with a total funding of $4.4 billion in this one single year. Even home delivery models and agencies such as Grofers, Swiggy, Zomato took a tap in the pandemic as an opportunity, and they gained a lot of market leadership. So, from the time that we only thought of people going to restaurants and and food joints to have their food, to having food delivered to your place. This is the change that we've seen. So there are a lot of lifestyle changes that have come as well. So, for example, wellness apps have done well, where people are wanting their wellness coaches or instructors to deliver the exercise modules at their doorsteps or at home while they're sitting in a remote location. So these kind of companies have done really well this year.